The entire weekend at the US Grand Prix was dominated by our two title protagonists. But as much as Lewis and Max will grab the headlines, and rightly so, I think their so-called wingmen have also started to come more and more into play as the season has gone on. Valtteri Bottas grabbed his first win of the season with a dominant performance in Turkey, and especially over the last few races, Sergio Perez has also shown small signs of making more steps to becoming a more comfortable driver against Max at Red Bull. But is Checo getting better in the latter stages of the season, just too little too late, or can he still help the Red Bull team beat Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship by the end of the year? What I have to keep reminding myself is that overall, of course, Checo has not been good enough this season because he's an experienced driver racing for a top team, and in a car that certainly in the hands of his teammate has been the best car when you look at the entire season so far. The performance of the Red Bull versus the Mercedes is not something I'm going to get into in this video because the short of it is that on some tracks the Red Bull is faster, on some tracks the Mercedes is faster, and on some tracks the performance is so close that it simply comes down to which of the drivers and teams does the best job in qualifying and then also in the race. We know that because Max has been at the team for such a long time and because he is such a great driver that's so integrated into that team, he can drive around any aero problems because ever since 2016, that's all he's ever known in terms of driving all of the various Adrian Newey Red Bulls. The Red Bull is clearly a very peaky car. Its ultimate performance is better than the Mercedes, but the Merc has a wider operating window that can be accessed on more tracks. However, we know all of this. In fact, we've known about it for well over a year, and this is the challenge that Checo has had to overcome ever since he was announced as a Red Bull driver. I think it's more than fair to say that Checo's first season with Red Bull has been a roller coaster of emotions, ranging from the highs of Baku to the lows of Silverstone. However, I do think that we have started to see some signs of progress by Checo after the last few races, even if, and I want to reiterate, they are just small signs, and by no means am I saying that he is ready to finish ahead of Bottas by the end of the season. Before we delve into where Checo has made improvements, I want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's video. Now, Surfshark is a virtual private network which is available as an easy-to-use app and browser extension. It allows you to protect your location by placing your laptop or phone anywhere in the world and access the internet as if you were in another country. Now, there are numerous benefits to this, not least of which, by the way, is safety and privacy. But one of the most common uses, for example, is if there is a Netflix show that isn't available in your country, then you can use Surfshark legally and safely to change your location, which then allows you to watch the shows that are available in other countries. Surfshark also has other benefits like cleaning the web and blocking those annoying ads that you see when you're browsing, which is actually my personal favorite feature because it just silently works in the background, making your life easier without you even noticing. Now, these are just a few of the benefits of Surfshark amongst many others, and if you are interested, then follow the link at the top of the description and use my code ALDAS to get 83% off and an extra 3 months for free. Now, on top of all of that with Surfshark, you also get a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there is no risk in trying it out. It's a really great deal that will benefit you and will also help the channel as well. So once again, thank you again to Surfshark. The last two races at Istanbul and Kota have been the two races where I have genuinely seen Checo be closer to Max, both in quali and then also in terms of race pace. But arguably, even more importantly, in both of the last two races, I think Checo directly prevented Mercedes from potentially scoring more points. In Istanbul, the gap in qualifying between Max and Checo was 0.51 seconds, and whilst being half a second slower than your teammate is still not great, it is an improvement when you compare it to their average qualifying gap, which has been almost 7/10. Admittedly, qualifying in Istanbul wasn't anything to shout about, but it was his performance in the race that showed that even if he doesn't have that raw speed and confidence in the car, it doesn't mean that his racecraft has took a back seat. Now, don't get me wrong, Checo does have these crazy moments in wheel-to-wheel combat where he is way too aggressive even for his own good, but this was not one of those moments. Defending from a charging Hamilton who was the quickest car on the track, he had one of the best wheel-to-wheel battles this season and managed to keep him behind after a brilliant battle. Now, it's what happened next that was most important. When Checo pitted, he forced Mercedes into a strategical choice with Lewis, and Lewis decided that he wanted to try and go to the end instead of pitting immediately after Checo and trying to overtake him again. Now, in the end, Checo was the one who finished on the podium, and Lewis was the one who was left wondering if he and Mercedes made the right choice and could have gotten more out of the race. That P3 in Istanbul was Checo's first podium in 8 races, with the last one being back at the French Grand Prix. However, as good as that result was, and as much confidence as he would have been able to take away from it, if he didn't carry that form into Kota, then it wouldn't mean anything more than that. Luckily this weekend in Austin, that pace and confidence carried over. Despite Mercedes dominating first practice, Checo was quickest in both practice 2 and practice 3. Then in the final part of qualifying, he showed no signs of slowing down as he set the fastest time in Q3 to go on to provisional pole after everyone's first runs. Now, in the end, both Hamilton and poleman Verstappen managed to get ahead of Checo because ultimately, Lewis and Max always have that spare 10th or 2 in their pocket to find, but Checo being P3 and legitimately ahead of Bottas was a huge result, with the gap between Checo and Max being just 2 tenths. In the race, yet again Checo played a key role in Red Bull walking away with a 1-3. Right from the get-go when Max made a bad start, Checo was right there to protect him because after his compromised run through turn 1, had Checo qualified down in P6 or P7, Max could have easily been overtaken by either a Ferrari or a McLaren. But it was that first stint that gave Red Bull track position and that eventually won them the race. When Max pitted on lap 11, Checo was only 3.6 seconds behind Max, which meant that Mercedes couldn't do the undercut with Lewis as he'd come out behind Sergio and Red Bull could use him to block Hamilton's progress. Checo being in Lewis's pit window during that first stint and keeping pace with the front 2 is what compromised Lewis's strategy, and ultimately, when Max jumped Lewis with the undercut, from there he had track position, and from there, Red Bull always had the upper hand in the race, and it was just about saving enough tyres to keep Lewis out of the DRS. Now, granted, the rest of the race was not so mega for Checo because by the end, he was 40 seconds behind the leaders. Unfortunately for Checo, he only had one brand new set of hard tyres, and so it meant that for his second stint, Red Bull had to put him on a set of used mediums, and on those tyres and with their degradation, he dropped like a stone. When it came to the final stint, Perez was also suffering from dehydration because his drink system was not working. Around Kota, with its scorching temperatures and hitting around 5G in some of the corners for lap after lap, in his own words, on that final stint, he just cruised to the finish, not pushing anywhere near as much as Lewis and Max, and he just made sure that he managed the pace to not fall into the clutches of Leclerc behind him. In the end, although it wasn't the cleanest weekend from start to finish, he managed to give Lewis and Mercedes a headache in terms of strategy, he helped give his teammate track position after the first stint, and he took back-to-back podiums in front of a crowd with a huge amount of Mexican support with high expectations. To me, it was undoubtedly his best overall weekend so far in a Red Bull, and it was a weekend where he didn't look out of place as Max Verstappen's teammate with the best car on the grid. The next big test will be Mexico. It's a track that Checo has gone well at in the past, but with the expectations of a home race, it will be a level of pressure that Checo has never experienced before. It's one thing to have a strong midfield car for your home Grand Prix, but it's another to have a car that is capable of winning the race. After this weekend, Checo has now moved back into 4th in the Drivers' Championship. Now, that is not an achievement because that's the minimum of where he should be, but it's still better to see yourself in P4 knowing that you're in a close fight with Mercedes rather than losing out to Lando in a McLaren. Closing up to Bottas in P3 in the drivers is going to be a tall order, but what I think is still possible if Checo continues this run of good form is for Red Bull to possibly close up the 23-point gap in the constructors. 23 points in 5 races is more than doable, but even if Max wraps up the title, it's still going to come down to Checo to be able to get it over the line. Again, Austin was his best weekend because despite Bottas' engine penalty, Checo had him covered even in qualifying. Whether he can keep this up and consistently challenge Valtteri is still a question, but he's definitely reached a new peak in terms of performance, and only time will tell if he can continue to get to grips and get closer to the ultimate pace of the 2021 Red Bull to make up the difference in the Constructors' Championship by the end of the season. Well, there you have it, another video wrapped up. Now, don't forget, let me know all of your thoughts in the comments box below. I can't wait to see what you have to say. And once again, a big thank you to Surfshark VPN. Don't forget to use my link at the very top of the description, or use my code Aldas to get 83% off and an extra 3 months for free as well. So once again, a big thank you to Surfshark VPN. Anyway, if you did enjoy this video, then don't forget to drop a like and smash that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.